Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello, freaks and fiends, and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like a ripped strip from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the outlaw Dr. H.R. Smokenstein, THC, and with me, as always, is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India Heart expert, the guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Amy Rose.
Hi. Help if I had my microphone over.
Huh?
Help if I had my microphone over.
It would, because I don't know if you saw your Mini Monsters promo this week. You got to start remembering. Just because you're standing up doesn't mean the microphone.
Yeah, but because you control the sound, I always think you have it set. Do you know that kind of way?
I completely forgot.
I know,
about it
I
too.
forgot about it. I'm sorry. I'll fix that.
But so last week we took a look at. We started the Sawyer story,
We did.
and we looked at the Sally Hardesty incident.
Yes.
Now the problem with starting the story there was there's an awful lot of names, awful lot of ages, awful lot of relations that were very hard to pin down and to place, and things feel a bit jumbled.
So what you're saying to our listeners is maybe start at episode 2.
No. This is intentional. This is the way it happens, so this is the way we discuss it.
Okay, cool.
Nobody knew about their background until later,
Until
so
the
they
shit hit
shouldn't
the
know
fan.
about their background till later. They're going to know it earlier than everybody fucking else.
You just get it the same way everybody else got it.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, but yeah, so we are going to take a step back and we're going to go look at the Sawyer family tree and what got them from backwood Texas butchers to incestuous, cannibalistic, ritualistic psychopaths.
Yes.
And the incest probably has a lot to do with it.
Probably. I would say
But
so.
I have done my best today to try and narrow down who belongs to who, who's what age, and who is who.
Okay.
Because this is the Sawyer's greatest
Hits.
tactic. Their greatest tactic is to keep this sort of information as jumbled as
Hidden and
possible,
messed up, yeah.
to make it hard to pin them down, as we'll see, because we will discuss a man by the name of W. Sawyer today briefly on and off.
Mm-hmm.
Then next week, we will show how Drayton Sawyer uses that name in a form when he is in trouble with the law. But then again, afterwards, after Drayton has passed away and is gone, there's a W. Sawyer right back at the end of our story again.
That is true.
So these guys like to swap names, pick and choose names. I mean, they've been known as the Slaughters, the Sawyers, the Hewitts. So I think Sawyer is the official.
Well, that's a good
The
way
original.
to avoid law enforcement.
It is. So I think that the best thing we can do today is step back in time, way back in time, because
Pre-Civil War or just...
well, the Hardesty
post-Civil
incident was
War?
1973.
Uh-huh.
We are going back to
1840s.
about that. Yeah, hang on a moment. You know what? The best thing I can do now is I can have my little case file open here as well, because I usually have a little case file note as well, and that has dates printed in them that I can follow. Oh yeah, so we're going right back to 1849.
Hold up. I was
So, yeah.
thinking as much. Because we said he'd be about 130 when we were talking about Grandpa last week. And that would have been in 1970. So we'll put him probably about the 1840s.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. For a long time, he's time of death was estimated at 1986, making him 137 years old. But really, we're going to talk about here how that happened a lot earlier.
His death. Okay. Yes.
So, yeah, let's get
Crack on.
cracking because there's a fair bit of history here to go through.
So before the Sawyer name meant anything in county reports, there was Earl. Not a legend yet, not a corpse at a table, just a man born into a country that had already torn itself in half. If we accept the age attached to him in later accounts, his birth would have placed him in the years following the Civil War. Texas was not rebuilding quickly. Reconstruction did not feel like repair in rural countries. It felt like abandonment. Rail lines favoured cities. Industry favoured the north. And outlying communities survived on what they could grow, trap, or slaughter.
Jesus, you're giving Texas a lot of credit here.
Am I?
You know, would you call it a rural country?
County. State.
It's as big as a country. I mean, it's bigger than our country. 3 or 4 times the size of our country.
But it's not a county. It was
Which kind of
county was
explains
written.
why these guys were all over the fucking place and able to still stay hidden. Which is surprising because you'd think your natural reaction in Texas would be just jump over the border to Mexico and
Yeah.
No. These guys like to stay within the state lines. I suppose keeping the FBI out of it.
That's true.
Anyway, Earl learned butchery young. Not as artistry, as necessity. Livestock was wealth, meat was currency, waste was weakness. In the slaughterhouse, nothing was thrown away. Bones were boiled, fat rendered, organs consumed. The lesson was simple. Everything has use. Now I got a question for you. Do you know what head cheese is?
Brains? Or is it what's made from the liquid of brains?
Sort of. They actually, it's used, they want to use all the parts of the animal body. So actually, the right version of it would keep the eyes, tongue, and ears out of it. Possibly there is brains in it because I know it was collagen rich is the way it was described to me. But it is essentially the face, the hands, the feet of animals all mushed into this gelatinous kind of agent to keep it stuck together. Essentially, it looks like, from what I can tell, it looks like corned beef.
It sounds dirty is what it sounds.
But yeah, head cheese is what it's referred to.
Would you eat it?
I believe it originated in Germany.
Oh, so they probably had a cooler name for it than head cheese.
I will tell you no. No, I would not eat head cheese. To be honest with you, that sounds like the disgusting aftermath of a blowjob, to be honest with you.
Schultz.
Oh, Dutch. It's Dutch. Hoofdkaas.
There's also, they're in Bavaria, they're the same thing called Presskopf and Schwartenmagen.
It's meat jelly.
Head meat, heart, or tongue suspended in gelatin. Oh, I have seen this before. Cool.
Yeah, it did not commonly include the brains, eyes, or ears. Sorry, I was wrong with the tongue. So it didn't have the brain, doesn't have the eyes or the ears, but
eyes
it's
are
compared to
dangerous to
meatloaf,
eat.
which makes me completely fucking not sure of what meatloaf is anymore.
No, I always thought that I'd eat meatloaf.
We don't have meatloaf
No.
in Ireland. This isn't a thing. I've never eaten meatloaf. I've only heard of it in American sitcoms and American TV shows.
Do we have an equivalent of it?
Huh?
Do we have an equivalent of it?
I have no idea, but if it's anything like head cheese, I don't want anything to do with it.
Would you eat offal?
No,
haggis. Would you not try haggis? Liver is really nice. Kidneys are nice.
No.
I've never tried tongue, but our parents have.
Oh yeah, meatloaf is just ground meat combined with other ingredients to make a loaf. So yeah, it's pretty
Shepherd's
much
pie, cottage pie apparently is touted as an Irish equivalent, but I think that that meatloaf is more tighter packed, if that makes sense, than what we have. Yeah.
Either way, head cheese, like I said, sounds like the aftermath of a very
Bad STI.
Well, I was going to say a bad blowjob. A process of a disease-ridden blowjob. Yes, would be the right.
Yeah. Lovely.
Continue.
So records from the period show waves of drought and crop failure across parts of Texas. Hard winters, followed by brutal summers. Families leaving land they could no longer sustain, and those who stayed learned to stretch what little they had. In hard times, taboos weaken before hunger does. There are no documented accounts placing Earl in any formal scandal, no arrest, no trial, no newspaper headline. What exists instead are patterns. A family that later demonstrated. Comfort.
But they were monsters, though, so that works.
Comfort with slaughter tools, with preservation methods, with the processing of flesh beyond livestock. Cannibalism didn't begin as ceremony.
No, it began as survival logic. At least that is the most generous reconstruction you can give him. An animal die, meat feeds the household. An outsider dies, same rules apply. Actually, funny enough, now that I'm looking at this in retrospect, we can't pin any serious crimes on Earl Sawyer.
No.
We can't even prove that Earl Sawyer started the cannibalism. It's assumed, and through family lore, that he was the beginning of cannibalism. But really, from what I can tell, all the trouble starts after he dies. But then again, people say that he was still alive at 130 whatever in 1986. So he could have been a part of it all. Who the fuck knows? I still believe he was just a meat puppet. But well, we will see how we get to that as we go along.
Yeah. So at first, it wouldn't have been spoken of as identity, only efficiency, only waste avoidance. But repetition changes meaning. A practice born in famine becomes habit and stability.
Habit becomes preference. Preference becomes doctrine. Isolation grows around doctrine. Neighbours are kept at a distance. Questions are discouraged. Marriage narrows. Trust shrinks to blood. So that's the thing here. When they start doing this, if they are doing the cannibalism at this stage, one thing we do know for sure that would point to Earl having a part in the cannibalism is those last two lines. Marriage is narrow, trust shrinks to blood. What did they have to hide if they weren't already up to it at that stage? You know?
Yeah. So if Earl was the origin, he was not theatrical. He was practical. He didn't need masks and he didn't need spectacle. He needed a family that understood one rule above all others. Survival belongs to those willing to do what others will not. By the time the name Sawyer began to circulate beyond one county line, the foundation had already been poured.
Yeah. Hunger explains the beginning. It doesn't explain what came after, though.
Yeah. If Earl's first act of cannibalism was born of famine, it didn't remain there. Seasons changed, crops returned, livestock stabilized, but the line had already been crossed. When a taboo is broken once, it becomes easier the second time. What had been emergency became method. What had been method became preference. The household didn't starve again in the same way, yet the practice continued and it offered advantages.
Yeah. Meat without purchase, silence without witnesses, power without oversight.
An outsider who wandered too close could be made useful, not merely killed, processed, preserved, shared. The slaughterhouse lessons of Earl's youth transferred cleanly.
Bleed efficiently, butcher quickly, waste nothing, hide evidence in plain sight. I mean, do you know what? Growing up in Ireland, which is mostly rural, even our fucking cities feel like they have a rural element to the times.
Yeah.
I know guys like this. I know older men like this who would be pack rats. They would have everything kept in their house. Fucking,
Hoarders, like?
Yeah, borderline hoarders. Because of this waste nothing, want nothing kind of attitude,
It'll come in handy in 30 years' time.
Save
Leave
the
it in the
pennies
jar.
and the pounds will come. How often did you hear that in the fucking 90s, huh?
A lot. In rural Texas, livestock blood was common. Bone fragments were not unusual. Smoke from a pit did not draw suspicion. Over time, the family's relationship with death shifted. It no longer carried the weight of desperation. It carried familiarity. Children raised in that environment would not recoil from what they were shown early. They would normalize it. A calf and a man were spiritually equal in the household's logic. Both were protein. Both were opportunity. The more the practice embedded itself, the more isolation became necessary. Neighbours were kept at a distance. Social visits declined. Courtship narrowed. Outsiders were either distrusted or absorbed. Paranoia did not arrive suddenly. It grew alongside secrecy. If the world would not understand them, the world became a threat. And when threat becomes constant in the mind, preemptive action feels justified.
Yeah, cannibalism hardened into identity. Identity hardened into ritual. Meals were no longer just sustenance. They became reinforcement, a reminder of who was inside the circle and who was not.
Yeah.
And that line between survival and belief had disappeared at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This was just the way things were in the Sawyer household. It was so fucking normal. Nobody blinked an eyelid at it.
Yeah.
I would assume if you worked in a slaughterhouse, that kind of desensitization does come along.
Oh, yeah, or else you're going to be out of a job pretty soon.
Well, to be able to look at a human and a fucking animal differently.
My granddad was a butcher for a few weeks and he gave it up. He couldn't do
hack it.
He was a farmer, like, you know, he grew up a farmer background. He was a farmer afterwards, but he just wasn't in him, like, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
I could probably be a butcher, like,
but
if
back then you're killing the animals as well. As in, like, if you think about it, he was born in 1913, so he would have started his work life.
Slaughterhouse would have been a step too far for me.
Too far, yeah. It was too far for him as well, because I'd say back then you were killing the animals as well as butchering the animals.
My sister's partner worked in a slaughterhouse, didn't he?
There's really good money in working in slaughterhouses because you can't keep it up. If you're an abattoir worker, you can't do it for a long time because you're more susceptible to arthritis and all that. So the pay is amazing. It's like danger pay. Like,
why would you get arthritis nowadays? Do they not just use the...
I think it's something got to do with the cold and the damp conditions because everything would have to be pretty cold. Trust me, I know an abattoir worker who lives near my mom and dad, and his cars have been pretty cool.
Okay.
So by the time Earl's children were old enough to understand what their father had done, it was no longer framed as necessity. It was framed as inheritance. Earl built the house and Wilhelmina maintained it.
So Wilhelmina here is, well, I suppose you couldn't really call her an outsider at the start because it was just Earl on his own. But this was a time as well where, like, the age difference is big here. Because she is, I suppose it wasn't that, she was born, is that right? She would have been born in 1890, sorry, they married in that time, 1884.
So the age difference would have been about 35 years?
Yeah. So by the time, and she married him when she was like 15. So that would have put him, what, in his 40s?
35,
50s?
that's 50.
Yeah.
50 years of age, yeah.
But again, if you live in rural Ireland, you would see that is actually a normal thing. You explained this to me, which fucked me right up. I did not understand this at all. I never knew about this at all. Apparently, Irish farmers are not supposed to get married.
Way back. It's not the same in our culture now, but it is historic, as in like
until their mother is dead, because there's only supposed to be one lady at a house.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you marry, you're well, what would happen? Would you get disinherited or something? Or
I don't know what would happen because I don't know. Did many boys do it to their mummies? But
so they just
I don't know of anybody that's
not
done it.
marry until that
Stay single. I know of at least one guy who's alive now that carried on that tradition, and he has to be in his early 70s, and he's not married because his mother only died in the last few years.
How's his Chad?
Yeah. My own granddad didn't get married till he was 40 after his mom died, but he had been engaged before that.
And what age was your grand?
She was 20.
So there was a 20-odd year gap between them as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, the main thing here is the age difference. We don't really know a whole pile about how they got together. I would assume, judging off of the time period and judging off her age, that we were going medieval on their ass, and there was a lot of he has land, that person, I'll give you so much, you give me so much, a dowry territory.
Oh yeah, but 15 is still very young for a 50-year-old.
Again, we're talking about,
Still
Wild West fucking stage at this point, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're still in the kind of Wild West era, cowboy era.
Frontier
fucking
kind of
Texas,
period, yeah.
so I mean,
That is true.
At this point, it was Earl of the Brattle for Wilhelmina.
I know which I'd have picked. So together, they produced sons who would grow up inside rules the outside world would never see. Boss and Bear were raised in scarcity and silence.
And with names like that, you know you're a redneck.
Oh, definitely. They learned butchery before literacy. They learned secrecy before trust. By the time they were old enough to work the land alone, cannibalism was no longer debated in the house. It was assumed. Earl aged, and unlike the myth that would grow around him later, he did not appear immortal in life. He weakened. His hands shook. His voice thinned. The patriarch who had once decided what lived and what died became dependent on the sons that he had trained. And when Earl finally died, the house didn't respond with burial. It responded with denial.
It is extremely hard to pin down when this might have happened. In fact, I have little to no idea when this might have happened.
So we're just taking it as we're presented it. Right?
We know that it would have happened before the birth of Drayton Sawyer. Drayton Sawyer would have been born in 1920. So it was before that. Bear was, so Boss was born in 1900. Bear was born in 1910.
Okay.
Drayton, that can't be right either. I am really, really, really struggling with these fucking dates. No, it does right. Yeah, 20 years.
How do you expect for yourself to get it on point if they've just presented a jumble of records? If we can forgive mistakes.
It's okay. I was right. The Boss was born in 1900, making him 20 when Drayton was born. And what we will find out soon is Boss is Drayton's father. Yeah. So it works out here. Because obviously Drayton's running around calling him Grandpa too. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wilhelmina refused the finality of it. Earl's death, that is. The body was cleaned, preserved, seated, not laid to rest.
Children are taught to respect their fathers, and the Sawyers were taught to maintain him. Whether anyone truly believed he was still alive became irrelevant.
No, he remained at the table, he remained at the head, the illusion held power. But with Earl's death came a practical problem. The line could not continue through him.
Yeah. Wilhelmina was still capable of bearing children. The house still needed heirs. Land required consolidation, secrets required containment, and there were only 2 adult males within the circle.
As I said a few minutes ago, Boss accepted the logic immediately. Blood keeps blood. No outsider brides, no risk of exposure. Bear did not share the same ease. No, there was a 10-year gap. Bear would have been pretty young when all this was fucking starting, so I can understand why he maybe went a different direction from Boss, you know?
Yeah.
He had accepted the cannibalism as survival. He had accepted isolation as protection. But incest crossed something different for him. He didn't fancy his mom, basically.
Would you blame him? So Wilhelmina's behaviour toward her sons had never been entirely maternal. There were whispers of boundaryless affection even before Earl's death. Whether those boundaries were crossed before or only after his passing remains uncertain. But what is clear is that Earl's death removed the last external structure holding the house in place. Without him, Wilhelmina became both widow and authority. And in the vacuum, tradition twisted further.
Boss stayed. Bear began to pull away as he got into his later teens. The clan did not fracture publicly, but the division had begun. Grandpa no longer ruled by hand. I suppose he wasn't Grandpa at this stage, but he ruled by myth. And it was in his name that the bloodline closed in on itself.
Yeah. Earl had raised 2 very different heirs. Boss was the believer. He didn't question the doctrine of the house. If cannibalism was survival, he accepted it. If isolation was protection, he defended it. When Wilhelmina proposed that the bloodline remain sealed, he didn't hesitate long. He framed it as duty, as preservation, as continuation of what Earl had built. Bear was cut from the same environment, but not the same conviction. He could stomach slaughter. He could stomach secrecy. He could even stomach the preserved corpse of his father seated at the head of the table. But incest was different.
A Sawyer with morals, huh? Who'd have thought?
Weird.
It felt less like survival and more like decay to him. He argued quietly at first, spoke of finding wives in distant counties, spoke of marriages arranged with strict oversight, spoke of secrecy maintained through fear rather than blood.
Wanted. Female into cannibalism.
I've told you already. I've seen crazier shit. Well, I haven't seen that crazy.
I've seen mad ones. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
Your
there
one
was
takes the
two
biscuit.
old fellas that had, and they weren't even proper farmers. They just lived really, really rural, and they were known. They were kind of known as, if you're from Ireland, you'll know who Podge and Raj are. Yeah. And they're two kind of disgusting country.
You don't know them. Go look for them. Yeah.
That actually horror fans would love them. They used to do a show called A Scare at Bedtime with Podge and Raj. It was a comedy show where they would tell. They actually started on a children's show.
And then they got more adults. Yeah.
And then they got their own talk show, and that was just fucking hilarious. But these two guys became known as Podge and Raj around my community because of their
hygiene,
looks, and just their general kind of demeanor and stuff like that. And one of them did actually look like he could be Podge or Raj, just heavier. But yeah, at one point they put in a letter a message into the classifieds of the local paper. Two brothers looking for a wife, willing to share.
Oh boy. So Wilhelmina dismissed the feelings. Yeah.
Well, she dismissed the idea of outside women coming in.
Exactly. Yeah.
She wanted to keep it strict within the family.
Exactly. An outsider would carry questions. An outsider wouldn't understand the rules of the house, and an outsider might one day leave. Boss sided with her.
Yeah. The argument didn't erupt in a single violent moment. It stretched. Meals became colder, conversations shorter. Bear began spending more time away from the main property, working day labor, trading livestock, establishing contacts beyond the immediate land. He didn't sever himself from the family entirely, but he stopped sleeping under the same roof. And we're going to see more of Bear next week's episode on what became of him and his own little brood.
Yes. Now, meanwhile, inside the house, a new structure took hold. Grandpa remained seated, cleaned, dressed, positioned as if still presiding. Decisions were announced in his presence. Disagreements settled beneath his unmoving gaze. The illusion became reinforcement. It was easier to justify transgression when framed as obedience. Boss stepped more fully into the role of executor. Wilhelmina controlled the domestic sphere. The sons were no longer simply children of Earl, they were custodians of his image. And under that image, the bloodline narrowed. The first pregnancies of this new arrangement did not come with celebration. They came with silence. The house had crossed another boundary, and there would be no turning back without dismantling everything Earl had left behind. The first children born after Earl's death did not arrive into a normal household.
Oh, shit.
They arrived into a doctrine. Boss had chosen his side. Wilhelmina had chosen preservation over propriety. Bear had stepped away, but not far enough to break the name. The bloodline closed in on itself, and the children that followed carried that closure in their faces.
Yeah, I mean, when you say they didn't arrive into a normal household, I'm pretty sure as soon as you're fucking looking at the man of the house and saying, "Hey, Uncle Dad,"
Uncle Dad,
you know, Uncle Dad, there's a problem. So, like I said before, Drayton came first.
Yeah.
He did not resemble weakness. He resembled calculation.
Yeah.
Even as a child, he watched more than he spoke. He absorbed structure. He understood that power in the house did not shout, it organized. Anne followed, quieter, observant. She learned Wilhelmina's rhythms, how to prepare meat, how to clean bone, how to speak in a room without being heard outside it. Norbert Nubbins, as who we got familiar with last week, and Robert Chop Top arrived together as energy rather than stability. The twins laughed too loud. They tested limits. They treated cruelty as entertainment. If Drayton inherited structure, they inherited appetite. And I'd like to correct myself from last week. Yeah, Nubbins was the one that lit the fuse that caused the collapse of the Sawyer family. But it was the twins in general.
Oh, of course it was.
Fall apart.
Yeah.
Chopped Up had a lot to play with the collapse of the Sawyer fucking household.
He was war-addled, wasn't he?
He was fucked before war, Amy. Long before war. Again, remember Betty Hartman, the twins.
That's true.
1955. They were kids.
That's true.
Alfredo and Richard came next. Richard was also known as Tinker, I assume, because he'd like to tinker with bits and pieces around the farm.
Yeah.
No one really explains that these names. I mean, Chop Top, you got to assume that guy didn't get his nickname until he came back from fucking the war.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll explain that later.
That's true.
Anyway, these names would, whatever about the rest, Alfredo and Tinker, their names wouldn't travel far beyond the property lines.
No.
Not a lot of people would hear about them or know about them. They pretty much after the twins, things got so fucking tight in that house that it was very hard to pin down who was who and who was where, who belonged to what.
Each child was raised without exposure to ordinary boundaries. No school records beyond early attendance, no church involvement sustained, no friendships that lasted long enough to threaten secrecy. The house became both cradle and cage, and Grandpa remained at the head of the table, his skin thinning, his presence ritualized. Meals were eaten beneath him, arguments conducted beneath him. Children thought that he still watched.
Whether they believed he lived, and it didn't matter anymore. Belief was not required. It was just all obedience. This man was essentially a god to them at this point.
Yeah. Then came Jedediah. Now, this pregnancy was harder. Wilhelmina was older, and her body had endured too much. The labour stretched beyond control. There was no hospital visit, no outside doctor. Intervention would have meant exposure. So Wilhelmina bled, and Jedediah lived. Wilhelmina did not. Her death did not fracture the household immediately. It hardened it. Grief was redirected. Anger required a target. The story told within the walls was simple. The last child took too much. The seed was wrong. Boss had allowed weakness to enter. Whether that accusation was rational didn't matter. It became the narrative.
And in that narrative, the father of the line stood responsible. The children had lost their mother, and someone had to pay for it.
Exactly. Wilhelmina was never buried. The ground didn't receive her, the house did. Her body was washed and preserved as carefully as Earl's had been.
But unlike him, no one pretended she was still breathing. She was accepted as dead and elevated because of it. A shrine formed around her. Candles, photographs, personal objects arranged with precision. Even down to these two little mutts of a dog that she had. They passed away. No one's even sure if they passed away previous to her, after her, or were killed when she was fucking killed so they could be stuffed and put next to her. And it wasn't a good stuffing job either. Those bodies were found eventually, and like half their heads would be missing and teeth would be showing. And
Yuck.
Either way, she was no longer the matriarch. She was a martyr.
The children visited her before meals and spoke to her in private moments. Blamed themselves before they blamed one another. If Grandpa represented authority, Wilhelmina became sanctity. Her death required explanation, and explanation required fault. Jedediah had survived and Wilhelmina had not. The house began to whisper that something had been wrong long before the labour, that weakness had crept into the line, that the father had allowed impurity to spread.
Boss didn't see the shift immediately. He believed grief would pass. He believed the children still saw him as a leader. He underestimated the power of myth.
Anne understood what was happening before anyone named it. She tended the shrine, she arranged the candles, she framed the narrative. Wilhelmina had given everything for the bloodline. Wilhelmina had endured what no outsider could understand, and had died preserving the family. If she was sainted, someone had to be condemned. Grandpa's corpse remained at the head of the table. Wilhelmina's shrine glowed in the corner of the same room.
Between them, Boss stood alone. Drayton didn't shout, he reasoned. He spoke of how the line must remain strong, of how mistakes cost lives, of how leadership requires sacrifice. Nubbins pushed the anger outwards. Chop Top turned it into spectacle. The younger children watched their mother transformed into a holy relic and their father into a liability. The ritual that followed was not framed as murder. It was framed as an offering. Boss was restrained beneath the gaze of both preserved parents. The tools were familiar, the method deliberate.
When it was finished, Wilhelmina's shrine held a new meaning. She had not died for nothing. The bloodline had corrected itself. The children ate again, not in celebration, but in devotion. Drayton began issuing orders without announcing authority even, and began shaping the domestic sphere without asking permission. Grandpa remained the myth and Wilhelmina became the saint.
And the house now belonged to the siblings who had proven they would protect both.
Power did not change hands without a speech. It shifted through routine.
You're falling, you're adding words in here.
Power
did not change hands with a speech.
With a speech.
No one needed to announce it. It just
I was still thinking
happened.
of my last fluff up because I meant to say without and I said with and I thought I had it covered this time and I said with and you know what I mean. It shifted through routine. Drayton began managing the practicalities, livestock, supplies, trade.
He understood something his father had not. Secrecy was no longer enough. The world outside the property was modernizing. Roads improved. Census records tightened. People noticed absences more quickly than they once had.
Anne controlled the interior. She tended Wilhelmina's shrine with precision. She maintained Grandpa's presentation. She shaped the narrative for the younger siblings. The house was no longer ruled by a husband and wife. It was ruled by a brother and sister, and that required consolidation. The bloodline had narrowed, and now it would double down.
Yup. Edward Tex Sawyer came first. Strong, volatile, raised in a house where violence was instruction rather than punishment. If I haven't made this painfully obvious, Drayton and his sister are now banging. W.E. followed. That stands for William Earl. Wilhelmina Earl.
Yep.
Obviously a call to their grandparents. He was quieter, more observant. He absorbed rather than explode. Very similar to Drayton in that respect, which is funny how Drayton would use his name later when he was in trouble with the law himself. Wilmer arrived last, restless from the beginning, born into a system that was already unstable. Wilmer is like Chop Top and Nubbins rolled together, but with a bit of intelligence sprinkled in. Okay. With a bit more calculating, but with the sick, twisted, sadistic side of the twins.
Yeah.
And if the twins were the ones to light the fuse that blew up the Sawyers, Wilmer was the one to fucking throw the bomb at the house.
Anne's pregnancies were not ceremonial. They were strategic. Each birth reinforced the idea that the family could sustain itself without outside intervention. But with each child came strain. The household was smaller now. Wilhelmina was a shrine. Boss was gone. Bear was absent from daily life. The younger siblings had become parents without mentorship beyond myth. Anne aged faster than she should have. Multiple pregnancies within a closed bloodline exacted a physical cost. Complications increased and recovery lengthened.
And with every birth, the risk of exposure grew. Children cried, supplies ran low, whispers in nearby towns began to circle the property more frequently.
Anne saw what Drayton refused to. The line could not continue indefinitely this way. There were no daughters of age, no women beyond herself, and the younger generation would soon reach maturity. If the bloodline was to survive, something had to change.
Yeah. And Anne made a decision for herself. No consultation, no ceremony. She ended her ability to bear children. A private act, a control wound, a refusal to let the house consume her body entirely like it had done her mother. The hysterectomy was not rebellion, it was calculation.
Who did she go to have the hysterectomy done? Was it done by themselves, or did she actually trust an outside doctor?
I would say this was a home job. Everything else was a home job. There's no hospital records for any of these people.
Fair play to her for surviving it.
Zero hospital records for any of these people.
Okay. So the next generation would have to carry the burden. But the house now faced a question it had avoided for decades, without women who would birth the future Sawyers. Grandpa remained at the table and Wilhelmina remained in her shrine, but neither relic could solve the problem of biology. And outside the property lines, the world was moving closer. Hunger returned before ideology was resolved. Not famine, but strain. Too many mouths and too little yield. The land that had sustained Earl could not sustain a second closed generation. Livestock numbers fluctuated. Game thinned. The house could not continue as a sealed ecosystem, and Anne saw it first.
Children do not wait for doctrine to evolve. They eat or they weaken.
Pretty much.
Edward or Tex was nearly a man. W.E. observant and quiet. Wilmer restless. Alfredo and Tinker still dependent. If anybody suffered from the fucking incest when it came to intelligence, it was outside of Bubba, Jedediah. It was Alfredo and Tinker. They were not... to be fair, Tinker was he had a bit of a brain in him. But Alfredo was slow. Tinker was a homebody, though. He was a mama's boy.
Okay.
He'd stick around. He liked to be close to Anne as much as he possibly could. So the house became too small, making it more visible, and it started to... It just...
became stagnant?
Yeah, became a bit stagnant in there. So they needed to mix things up a little bit.
Shake it up a bit. Anne proposed what Bear once had. Expansion, not abandonment. Division. Drayton resisted at first and the house was scared. Grandpa remained at the table and Wilhelmina remained at her shrine. To leave them felt like sacrilege.
But hunger does not respect relics. A decision was made quietly. Anne would take Alfredo, Tinker, W.E., Edward, and Wilmer. They would widen the net, move beyond the immediate property, trade more, hunt more, watch for opportunity, watch for women.
Drayton would remain and Nubbins with him. Jedediah, still young and volatile, would stay where he was most manageable. The house was all he understood. To uproot him too early would be dangerous. Robert was drafted. Military service offered distance and cover. One less mouth and one less risk on the property. And perhaps knowledge gained from elsewhere. The division was not civil, it was necessary. The house that had once functioned as a closed organism now became two moving parts, one static and one roaming. Grandpa remained seated and Wilhelmina remained by candlelight. Drayton began turning more of his attention to legitimate trade, fuel, small commerce. The gas station would become a mask and money.
Nubbins roamed shorter distances, testing strangers, learning the roads.
Anne's branch moved wider, less sentimental, less tied to relics, more focused on survival. They were not yet desperate, but they were no longer contained. The split didn't end the Sawyers, it evolved them.
And evolution rarely remains quiet for long.
Exactly. The split didn't solve the problem, it postponed it. Drayton kept the household operational. Fuel sales brought cash, cash brought supplies, and supplies brought time. Grandpa remained at the head of the table, cleaned, propped, maintained, and Wilhelmina's shrine continued to glow in the corner. Anne's branch moved wider each season. More road, more observation, and more calculation. Edward learned to charm before he learned to threaten. W.E. learned to study patterns. Wilmer learned to enjoy instability. They were no longer a farmhouse anomaly. They were becoming mobile predators.
But mobility creates friction. More contact with strangers, more visibility, more variables outside of their control.
Robert's absence left a gap in the house's volatility. Nubbins filled it with reckless curiosity.
He began bringing curiosities home too, as we spoke about last week. Trinkets, stories, occasionally people. Jedediah started to grow stronger, less manageable, more physical than any of them expected.
The static branch and the roaming branch began to feel like different philosophies. Drayton believed in structure, in order, in slow control. Anne believed in expansion, in widening the net, in taking opportunity when it presented itself.
Neither side was wrong, but were incomplete. The problem of women remained unresolved.
That's the catchy one, all right.
Outsiders were watched, tested, evaluated, but none yet bought fully inside. And I've stated this a few times. The biggest problem, the biggest mistake the Sawyers ever made was splitting up. They were always more efficient as a unit. And as soon as they started splintering away from each other, that's where the cracks started to fucking show. This is just as we're coming up to the Hardesty. Well, maybe a few years off the Hardesty incident, but it's starting to show already by them splitting away. I mean, maybe even Bear was the first one to kind of start the cracks in this family lineage. Who can tell? Maybe he would have brought about a few women, female Sawyers that they could have mixed with. Maybe kissing cousins would have been better than kissing brothers and sisters.
Which wouldn't have been unheard of in the South. So the relics in the house remained unchanged. Grandpa, Myth, and Wilhelmina was a saint. But Myth doesn't feed children, and saints do not silence highways. By the early 70s, the country itself had shifted. More cars, more travellers, young people on open roads with little caution. The back highways grew busier. Opportunity and risk began to overlap. The Sawyers were no longer hidden by isolation alone. They were positioned along movement. The split had created reach, and the reach would soon create consequence. And when consequence arrived, it would not look like famine. It would look like witnesses.
And that is about as good as we can do with a family tree for the Sawyers.
Yes.
I think we did all right. I think we explained where everybody is, who everyone belongs to, which is the most important part here, because this is a very tangled fucking web of bullshit, lies, and bodily fluids that shouldn't be going into other bodies. We got there. We got through it. A little shorter of an episode, not by much. I mean, we went 50 minutes, but I felt like this needed to happen before we move forward, so everybody knew who everybody was, because as we go forward, it's episode 2, we got 3 more episodes left. The next 3 episodes essentially deal with 3 separate fucking offshoots of the Sawyers. Not offshoots of the Sawyers, but 3 generations as we go down, and we see the generations falling apart as we get further and further and further down. And we see them dig deeper, and we see them clutching at straws harder and harder. And by the time they get to Wilmer, he's wrapped up in so much fucking shit that it's just impossible for them to stay going.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting few weeks. But until then, if you want more family murder and psychopaths, go check out It's a Live Action, where we cover the Bloody Benders.
Yes.
That's this week, right? Yeah.
Sure is.
Sure is. And we also have Playing with Bones episode 2 of season 5 coming out.
Yes.
Joan
of Arc.
We're doing Joan of Arc.
We're doing Joan of Arc this week.
Very good. Or we did Joan of Arc this week.
We did do Joan of Arc this week.
No. We're doing Joan of Arc. I am terrible with this recording schedule.
I am printing it out and putting it up on that wall.
Boudica you got yesterday. You're getting... That hasn't come out yet.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
That comes out yesterday.
It does.
So it didn't come out yet. I don't know. We're recording all on a sequence.
Come out yet.
Either way, if it's available, it's available on the Harvest Network. $5 a month. 7-day free trial. Also on their celebrity rap sheet. Playing with Bones, Mini Monsters, It's a Live Action, Real Talk with the Doctor, Amy Rose photo drops, and every Monday you can catch the gorgeous and sexy Amy Rose playing on games on Twitch at Amy Rose 9.
Is it no wonder we've got so much jam-packed that we can't keep track of our days?
That's what I'm saying. It's a lot. We like I said, day one, we are now heading for episode 100. Day one, we jumped into this head fucking first.
We sure did.
It's episode 100 of It's Alive. It's
Has to
episode
be
500,
500, yeah,
when it comes to everything we've done over the last
Everything.
2 years. Between all the failed shows that we've cancelled, the shows that are actually succeeding and doing all right, we have and shows that we've rebooted. I mean, before we had the Harvest headlines, we had Say What, that was rebooted twice.
Yeah, I forgot that was
Before we had It's a Live Action, we had Real Monsters. Before Real Monsters, we had Behind the Mask. Before Behind the Mask, we had something else that I can't fully fucking remember. Mini Monsters, you're on episode 100 and something, 20
But even
something.
that was rebooted.
But there was 100 episodes previous to that 120
we have to have close to
episodes.
1,000, so forget your 500,
If you're
600.
going on mini-sodes, you're well
cool.
up there. So
Knew it.
it's only in the last year that we've kind of solidified what we are doing and what we're staying doing.
I think
And even
it's
now, we're
good-
still adding to the fucking schedule.
I'm calling it now, though, for a while. Our schedule is perfect for the next few months.
Double freature. We got to try and fit that in. We promised that in February. We're now in March.
We did, but we had a lot of family stuff. Not
As
in
much
bad
as
family
far
stuff.
as I have gotten so far with it's with
You've
our
made a
double
good intro.
feature, is I have made the intro team music and the intro and the outro.
But we've also
theme
picked
music.
what movies we're doing.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
We just had to sit down and watch
the
them.
ones that are out that were free and that we wouldn't get charged for.
Hey,
They're the movies.
Joe Bob said
Public
it's
domain.
okay, so it's fine.
We will definitely get that out this month.
Yes.
We're working our ass off to get it there. I think, you know what I'm waiting for now at the moment?
Is our little mics.
Yeah, it was the realization that because the set for Double Freakshow is over there.
Yeah.
And over there, we have nowhere to stick these big ass long mics. So I had to order little tiny mics to clip onto our thing so we look proper.
Will the lights be in the way of the projector screen? And will they mess up the projection?
The people watching the show will not be able to see what's on the projection screen.
But will we be able to see what's on the projection screen with the lights on?
But we won't need to have the fucking lights on the projection screen.
They'll be on us, though.
But again, during the movie, they will not be required. We're not going to be there for the whole fucking thing.
I forgot what we're doing. I'm fine. I'm back into it now.
Intro,
Yes,
outro,
yes,
maybe
yes.
intermission. Maybe we might do a goggle box style thing where we pop up in the corner every now and again and leave a few comments. We still haven't figured all that out. We're still working this out.
Logistics.
And this is me just trying to fill time because I like to get to the hour, but we're not. That's not going to happen. We're at 52 minutes.
10 minutes of us deciding how
Yeah,
we're going
that's
to
not
do
waffle.
this. No.
Next week, when we come back, we are going to head to San Antonio as Drayton makes his way down to see what Bear's up to. Leatherface gets a new nickname. And then we finish off that episode in Dallas. So we're going to be all over the Texas state next week. We will see you all then. Same alive time. Same Harvest channel. Okay. Love you, lady.
Bye-bye.
Bye.